Do you remember that feeling you got when you first watched what would become your favorite anime? I do. It's magical. It feels like you've discovered something truly special that you'll hold close to your heart and look back on fondly. Of course, with this feeling comes the inevitable emptiness that's left after the show's over and the hunt for the next begins. That feeling only passes me by once in a blue moon, but this little hidden gem that quietly released in 2024 brought back that feeling again. That anime was Orb, on the movements of the Earth. I knew next to nothing about the anime before going in, aside from a short synopsis and praise from the few people who actually watched it. Coming into the series, I was admittedly skeptical at first. I had no idea what to expect, but what I certainly wasn't expecting was it to become one of my favorite anime of all time. I was intrigued by its first episode, and by the next I was fully caught in its orbit, committed to one of the most beautiful stories I've ever experienced. So on behalf of all 5 Orb fans out there, I want to do my part and pass on the torch. This video is as much of a recommendation as it is a love letter for the anime. This video will not contain any spoilers, but will also include things that people who have watched Orb can take away from. My goal is to get at least 10% of you to give Orb a chance while I gush over the show. That's why, for those who have already been Orb-pilled, you'll know exactly why I've titled the video the way I have. Orb offers an anime experience unlike any other that currently exists. It boasts masterful storytelling, thought-provoking themes, profound dialogue, rich characters, and a perfect ending to tie everything together. Orb on the Movements of the Earth is not only by far the best anime that released in its respective year, but also a serious contender for anime of the decade. Set in 15th century Europe in the Kingdom of P, the story follows a 12-year-old Rafal, a boy with a hobby in astronomy. His life's philosophy is to always make the most rational life decisions, even at the cost of his own feelings. He's a child prodigy, and even has the rare opportunity to attend university. Rafal, being who he is, chooses the time's most respected field, theology. His adoptive father Potocki sings his praises for Rafal's career choice, but urges him to stop pursuing astronomy to focus on his studies. While conflicted at first, Rafal ultimately agrees. That is, until he's met with the heretic scholar Hubert, who plants a forbidden idea into Rafal's head. The Earth is moving. You see, in the world of Orb, Heliocentrism, the theory that the Earth is at the center of the universe, is church doctrine. To deny this model of the universe is to go against the church and subsequently God himself. To suggest an idea like heliocentrism will deem you a heretic, leading to your prosecution by the church's inquisitors and is punishable by death. So when met with this idea, Rafal flat out denies it. The best evidence at the time does suggest that geocentrism is the true model of the universe, and Rafal knows damn well what happens to those who believe in these kinds of things. But as Hubert reveals his life research to Rafal, geocentrism seems more and more irrational. Rafal tries his best to deny Hubert's claims, but as time passes, the heretical theory's flame just won't go out on its own. This eventually leads to Rafal breaking his own life's philosophy and finding that it could indeed be the truth of the universe. Burdened with this forbidden knowledge and insatiable thirst for truth, Rafal must now prove the theory of heliocentrism in secret, avoiding the looming power of the church. While it is an interesting premise, I wasn't entirely sold on Orb. It's a historical fiction set in my least favorite place and period with astronomy themes. It's not something that anime fans or even most people would gravitate towards, and this was a real obstacle Uwoto, the original creator of the manga, had when pitching Orb. In fact, he was flat out denied by editorial departments, but kept Orb alive when he found Shuhei Chiyoda. Chiyoda found heliocentrism to be an interesting premise, but knew fully well that the manga would not sell well as is. Instead, they marketed the manga with the theme of risking your life for your beliefs, with catching taglines like, "Do you have beliefs that you wouldn't compromise even if it meant sacrificing your life?" And "Is there an aesthetic that you'd stick to even if it made the world your enemy?" with minimal reference to heliocentrism. This marketing proved to be effective. Orb would go on to serialize in September 2020 on Shogakukan's weekly Big Comic Spirits, a seinen manga magazine, to critical acclaim. It won the 26th Tezuka Osamu Cultural Prizes Grand Prize Award, which has winners with the likes of Doraemon, Monster, and Vagabond. and also won the 54th Seiyun Award for Best Comic, which has winners with the likes of Parasite, 20th Century Boys, and Full Metal Alchemist. In 2022, it was announced that Orb would receive an anime adaptation by Studio Madhouse, set to release in October of 2024. While it hasn't seen the same amount of success overseas as it did in Japan, it sits in MyAnimeList's top 100, but funnily enough, it is the least popular anime that isn't a sequel within Mao's top 100. Given the manga's marketing origins and its quiet anime release, Orb being a hidden gem is pretty meta given the show's narrative. Uoto held on to the story and passed it on to his editor, where its attentive marketing caught traction, leading to multiple awards. It eventually evolved into a medium I feel that best tells the story it does. Orb's greatness doesn't rely on things like flashy fights or even movement, ironically. Its greatness comes from its characters and profound dialogue. Orb has some of the best writing anime has to offer, along with a diverse cast of characters, all of whom never fail to grow on me despite me thinking otherwise at first. One thing I can really appreciate about Orb is that it's devoid of anime bullshit, for lack of better words. There are no unfunny comedic relief moments, no excessive moaning and groaning, or fan service. The characters feel like real people. In an article from Monton Web, Uoto says, "I aimed for a calm and solid directorial expression without getting too heated. I wanted to create a sense of bleakness, and I tried to portray people who work hard and have passion. I really like passionate works, but I find it hard to handle works that fail to be passionate. That tension was inside me, so I wanted to balance the temperature and make sure it didn't waver." Uoto's deliberately subtle approach to his characters truly make them feel so much more alive. One of my biggest problems in anime are scenes where characters cry. They're usually over-dramatized, overly anguished, and backed by dramatic music to forcefully evoke emotions. Whenever stuff like this happens, I'm almost always put off by what is supposed to be an emotional scene. In Orb, there's this moment where a character witnesses the death of someone dear to them. The entire time this is happening, you're waiting to see just how they'll react. But the entire time, they just don't. Not a single word leaves their mouth until the very next morning, where we see this monolith of a man break. It's quiet. Keep in mind that while I use statements from Uoto taken from interviews, Uoto is almost always referring to the manga, but the adaptation holds true to Uoto's vision. While it can be easy to dismiss Madhouse's adaptation as quote-unquote lower budget, even though that's generally an incorrect and misleading statement due to the lack of animation, it would be wrong to say that Madhouse didn't care about Orb. There are so many anime adaptations nowadays that are lackluster and don't improve upon the source material. I generally refer to these adaptations as read the manga kind of shows, but Orb is certainly not that. The addition of voice acting and music to back what is a very dialogue-heavy show makes anime the medium Orb was truly meant to be. And I'm not the only one who thinks this either. One of the few comments I could find about Uoto on Orb's anime adaptation is his praise for the show's voice actors and musical composer. Uoto was deeply impressed by the voice actors' performances and the fact that the anime adaptation added sound. He said he felt that the soundtrack composed by Kensuke Ushio was a real gift to the afterlife, and that the production was worth doing just for the fact that this was possible. Uoto was originally a fan of Ushio's music, and the only request he made regarding the anime adaptation was that Ushio would be in charge of the music. "I have no complaints, and they have simply surpassed the manga. I'm grateful." So it's not only Uoto's approach to his characters that allow the dialogue and acting to shine, but also Madhouse's decision to stay faithful to the source material. And while I can't say too much about the contents of the conversations the characters in Orb have, what I can say is that I found them incredibly moving and powerful. For a show rooted in scientific themes, it's imperative that it does not take sides when it comes to religion versus science. Orb never feels like the show is forcing a certain narrative or shoving messages down your throat. It respects you as a viewer and leaves things open-ended, allowing you to draw your own conclusions. As I said earlier in the video, I wasn't sold on heliocentrism. Like, I didn't think it would be a good central theme for the show. But as the episodes continued, I quickly came to realize just how much more heliocentrism meant than simply what the universe looks like. Orb utilizes every aspect of heliocentrism to its fullest extent, To understand what I mean by this, we also need to understand the implications of geocentrism. Geocentrism says that God made the Earth and humankind special. It places humanity at the center of the universe while the stars and other planets, or heavenly bodies, orbit it. The irrational movement of the other celestial bodies is taught to be incomprehensible, as the heavenly bodies do not follow the same rules as the Earth and are part of an entirely different domain. The laws of the Earth are something that is understood by humans, being born of sin, thus the Earth is corrupted. Early on, we're introduced to the character Oxy, who works as a contract fighter. From a young age, Oxy was hyper aware of the atrocities that took place on Earth and subsequently formed a nihilistic mindset. He has no goals, no aspirations, nothing. In his eyes, Oxy's only salvation from the world is heaven. But even then, Oxy is terrified that heaven may not even exist. And even if it does exist, his occupation has caused the death of countless lives. Would he even be granted the passage to heaven? Because of this, Oxy, despite having wonderful eyesight, fears the night sky. Instead of a beautiful starry sky, he sees the stars as eyes, looking down on him, judging him. He's a truly lost soul. That is, until he's met with heliocentrism. Instead of placing the Earth at the center of the universe like the geocentric model does, heliocentrism places the sun at the center and declares that the Earth moves with the heavenly bodies in unison. With this model, there is no separation between Earth and the heavenly bodies, and there are no separate domains. Heliocentrism declares that the Earth is a beautiful place, that it is allowed to be on the same level as the heavens, and that God created the cosmos under a single unified order. Heliocentrism has the power to give lost souls like Oxy hope in the world once again. It gives him purpose. The implications that heliocentrism has in the world of Orb are far heavier than a simple factoid of what the model of the universe looks like, and this is one of the many ideas the series explores with the theory. And just as heliocentrism holds so much more meaning than simply the Earth moves around the sun, Orb is so much more than a show about trying to prove the theory. I am trying my damn hardest to put people on the show without giving too much away, as it's truly something to be experienced. I cannot understate how well written this show's narratives and characters are. The many themes the show presents and the many stories it tells with each character are unlike any piece of media I've ever seen. It all culminates to what I think might just be the best ending to an anime I've ever watched. The more I scour through discussion posts about Orb, the more I read up on the series creator Uoto, the more I find myself having revelation after revelation, discovering the show's secrets and piecing together details that lie beneath the surface. To showcase just a singular example of what I mean, I want to point your attention to the title of the anime, Orb on the Movements of the Earth. It's a pretty unconventional title for an anime to have, which piqued my interest the more I heard about the show and its praises. Upon doing research, I found that On the Movements of the Earth is in direct reference to various scientific publications on the topic of astronomy, like On the Universe, On the Heavens, and On the Soul by Aristotle, On the Revolutions of the Heavenly Spheres by Nicholas Copernicus, and On the Shoulders of Giants by Stephen Hawking, which is actually just a compilation of scientific text that was edited by Stephen Hawking, which coined the phrase standing on the shoulders of giants. A metaphor which means using the understanding gained by major thinkers who have gone before in order to make intellectual progress. I can't imagine a more fitting subtitle to Orb than On the Movements of the Earth. Orb, on the other hand, was changed from the Japanese title Chi, which has multiple meanings in Japanese and can refer to earth, knowledge, and blood. Uoto has gone on record to say, "I wanted to write a story related to intelligence and violence and settled on heliocentrism." The amount of thought put behind something seemingly as insignificant as the title continues to increase my love towards the show. Uoto spent over a year planning the manga, and it truly shows in its masterful storytelling and level of detail. Mind you, I am just talking about the title alone. The entire show has this amount of thought put behind every building block of the story. It wastes not a single episode, tells a fully complete story, and ends it perfectly. And the fact that Uoto attended university to not study art but instead philosophy speaks volumes as to why Orb is so thought-provoking. Unfortunately, that is basically all I can say and all the praises I can sing about Orb without delving too deep into spoiler territory. It is truly a one-of-a-kind anime, and the fact that it's fully complete at 25 episodes is something I really appreciate. I want to talk about the show in more detail so badly that maybe later down the line I'll make a more in-depth video for Orb. But for now, I implore you to give the show a chance. If you've been sitting on the fence about it, now is the time to watch. I promise you won't regret it. Either way, I'm glad to have experienced something like Orb in my lifetime, and I really just wanted an outlet to talk about how much I love the show. If you're a seasoned anime watcher or like shows that are character driven and thought-provoking, Orb is the show for you. Orb on the movements of the Earth's anime may not have moved the world, but it did move mine. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to support the content that I make. Sources and additional readings used to make this video are in the description as always, and thank you all for 1,000 subscribers. It seriously means the world to me, and if you have any feedback, criticisms, or even anime recommendations, do feel free to drop them down below as I read every single comment. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.